When it comes to really showing data in a great way, whether it be pricing or positioning, the scattergram is basically king. It's a very simple, very easy to understand graph that helps you really convey information to your clients in a much better way than just showing them MLS data forms. Now, to open up your pricing scattergram, all you had to do before was click on pricing, click on the tab that showed your pricing scattergram. For positioning, it's basically the same. We're going to click the positioning button here at the top, and then click on POS or positioning gram here at the bottom, and now we can see our positioning scattergram. Now what you'll notice here is we don't have the trend line we had in the last one, and we have a lot more dots in this case on this graph. Now this here, you can see, represents the for sale in the green triangles and the under contract in the gold diamonds. Now what we really want to use this for is positioning to win. Now to do this, we're going to add our subject property based on the value we kind of got a rough estimate for from the pricing step, and using the finished square feet in this case to put ourselves in that spot and say, what do we look like? So before we had about 3,000 finished square feet, and we were thinking about 750. Now again, I got that from our previous steps, or if I go back to this scattergram, this was the subject property. We drew a line up from the square footage, got probably about here. We talked about this house here had good landscaping or a half finished basement that kind of matched us. We were thinking about here, about 750, about is what we're thinking. Simple as that. We're going to bring that idea to the positioning by adding that same user property and then adding quadrants. Now to do this, you can see we have all the controls we had before on the pricing data sheet in this positioning data sheet. So I'm going to click Add User Property. I'm going to add this as a subject property, and I'm going to go ahead and do what we had done before, but in this case I'm going to put list price at that value that we were kind of thinking it might be. Now to add this to the graph, we're going to do the create graph options again, and in this case I'm going to click on this option here that says positioning quadrant, because that's the real goal of this graph, is to help us position this. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the value boxes as well, even though I'm going to talk to you about it, talk to you through this process, just to help you understand and convey this to customers. I'm going to click to keep both, and now we have a new scattergram where you'll see we added the subject property. I'm going to click on this twice till the white squares appear, and then drag this where I want. And the subject property here is shown now at the 3,000 square feet and the $750,000. Now looking at this, you can see that this box kind of gives us good information that properties located in this quadrant provide less space for the dollar, meaning that they are smaller square footage, higher priced. In this quadrant would be more square footage, lower priced. And in these ones, it's kind of like a general relation of square footage and price. Now, that does not mean that this is necessarily just a worse value. You'd have to look at these properties that are for sale and see how you stack up. But if all else was equal, lot size, condition, special features and amenities, hard surface upgrades, etc., then your house, being larger square foot for lower price, would be better value. Now you have to look at these and see kind of how those different factors match up. But the goal here is to put ourselves in a spot where we really have a good competitive advantage over the direct competition to an amount we need. Now, to the amount we need is a very kind of open-ended question, but to learn more about how to understand what kind of opportunity you have for sales, make sure you check out the new CMA Mastery class where we walk through this process in depth about positioning and really understanding how to compare properties and figuring out how much competitive advantage you need in order to win. Now in this case, you can see that there's 3 properties up here that we have advantage over. There's a couple down here that we're kind of in a good relation with. So in this case, we're definitely in a competitive advantage situation because we beat 3 that are currently on the market. Theoretically, we can kind of almost say we tie with these 3 if all else was about the same, which means we're at like a +3 when you think about the idea of how many homes we win or lose against. Now you could make the argument, because we actually went ahead and looked at this earlier, showing that we favor sellers. There's not a lot of homes in the market right now. That maybe what if our customer wanted to price a little higher? Well, we can probably do that and price a little higher and then put ourselves in a situation where we might be more in a tie with these dots and still have an advantage over this one. Now that would then maybe say we move up to 775 and then kind of look at that. In this case, we have the option to do that because the scattergram shows us we don't have a lot of homes we're losing to over here. In other cases, it might not be that way. But that's why this graph really lets you use this quadrants to look at your competitive advantage or competitive disadvantage, if there were some homes for sale over here, for example, and be able to really position correctly for the right competitive advantage you need. Now again, to do this, all we did was go to the positioning here, use the ribbon controls to add a user property, and then use the create graph options to create a new graph, adding what we wanted to in the case of a positioning quadrant, the value boxes, and still graphing on finished square feet. So that's how you use this positioning area to create that scattergram graph and really be able to hone in on the price that's right for your customers.